Good morning and welcome to the Energy Prospectus Group webinar hosted by Midwest Energy Emissions Corp, doing business as ME2C Environmental. This event is being recorded. During the presentation, all participants will be muted. If you have any questions you would like to ask, please type them into the chat feature. We will read and answer questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now here is Dan Steffens, who will introduce today's speaker.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm glad you guys joined us live today. We are going to record this and it'll go out to our entire membership this afternoon. I think I would call this a great story stock that is now generating enough operating cash flow to fund their growth. So that's something I want to stress today. And also, this company was brought to the attention of me by one of our members up in Calgary that brought us Surge Energy, Colibri, and Rock Resources, all of which I'm extremely bullish on. So this one looks really good to me. So let's get into it. Today's webinar is hosted by Midwest Energy Emissions Corp. That it trades as MEEC, but it is doing business as ME2C Environmental. So that's its registered DBA. It is a public company based in Corsicana, Texas, which is a town about an hour's drive south of Dallas. I drive through it many times. I've stayed there many times. The company provides proven, patented emissions control technology, along with expertise, insight, and innovation to the global energy sector, helping utilities with coal-fired power plants and other energy providers to optimize their operations, meet compliance regulations, and reduce cost in the area of mercury emissions control. They're also working on several other technologies. Their research and expertise that they developed, they developed the best available control technologies in the world for mercury control. ME2C is the commercial extension of over $60 million of research and development. The company has worked with the Department of Energy, the EPA, and dozens of utilities across the U.S. to develop the best mercury emissions capture process available, known as the C system, or Sorbent Enhancement Additive System. This system is now the leading technology used by a high percentage of United States coal-fired utility fleet. Our speaker today is Richard McPherson, or goes by Rick, President and CEO of ME2C. Rick brings over 30 years of executive experience from a variety of industries across America, serving as president and CEO of the company since 2016. He oversees the expansion, development, and commercialization of the company's proprietary emissions control technologies across the fossil fuel energy sector. Mr. McPherson founded Midwest Energy Emissions Corp. In 2008 to commercialize the Sorbent Enhancement Additive, or CEA, technologies. Under his direction, the CEA products and processes were launched across the coal-fired utility markets in the United States and Canada starting in 2008, and he has negotiated the full SEA or C patent portfolio acquisition in May of 2017. So Richard's team is also pursuing strategic efforts to expand into other environmental technologies, namely rare earth element extraction and remediation of wastewater from coal-fired power plants. Okay, so during the webinar, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and we will answer them after the presentation. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rick, who will tell the company's story, where they stand now, and then I'm going to go on mute and I will come back for Q&A, but it's all yours, Rick.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody taking time today to listen to our story. I'll stick to the main points and wait for any questions you might have to get into any significant details. But as you mentioned, we started the company I started the company back in 2008, and then we bought all of the patent rights outright after we had been up and running in 2017. So let me get into the presentation and we'll run through it.
Okay.
So we have environmental technologies based on a skill set base of sorbent technology know-how, which came out of the University of North Dakota's Energy Environment Research Center. We've done just a pile of work there over the years. Patented over 60 different patents on the different technologies that we have in play. A number of them also we are now litigating with some significant users of the patents that have made literally billions of dollars on its back. We've been in a 4-year program on that. Expect that to come to fruition in the next 3-4 months. So that'll be an interesting time for the company after these 4 years of effort on that front. And that basically covers about, let me carry on then. With regard, it is a chemisorption model technology that was developed in the University of North Dakota back in the early 2000s, which was patented and acquired by our firm and used to develop and build out the technologies in the field across the country. So we have dozens of different power plant boilers now operating with our system across the country. And we have another probably 25 to 35 boilers with the technology that have yet to take licenses with us, which we are depending on coming through once we finish our IP case that we now have in hand. The technology, of course, is usable for a number of different types of endeavor. We're using it for mercury control right now, but we've been working for these past few years on both wastewater remediation from coal ash ponds, as well as most recently applying that know-how to the potable water industry in the US in particular, with these new forever chemical regulations anticipated to come in later this year. So we continue to move on that skill set strength as we build our core business. We've got a strong team, small, but everybody's been with us for a long period of time, very dedicated to putting the next round of technology to work commercially. And we're looking forward for that to take effect as we go into the fall. Snapshot of the corporate structure of the company. Shares outstanding, 93 million, with about a third of that owned by insiders. As the founder, I am the largest shareholder of the company, but a nice ownership position by the management team and a few single individual large investors. Cash flow positive operationally. We have no need for any capital raise in the foreseeable future. We've had significant growth since 2020, 50% top line revenue growth, 80% margins on the licensing revenues that we generated, and 30 to 40% margins on our ongoing supply contracts. We've also got an interesting buyback option with one of our largest shareholders, Alterna Capital, in that we are in a position to be able to buy back 7 million of their shares at 50 cents, which is something that we would expect to take back into Treasury once completed. So let me talk about the core business, where we are now with our base business, with our IP portfolio, and with our new endeavors. The core business, as I've mentioned, has been growing nicely. The coal business in the US is solid. It's stabilized in that 22% range of the fleet. We expect it to stay that way for several years, and we expect our share of it to continue to grow as it has been. So that gives us a nice, solid, profitable base of business to grow on. We very much expect that the growth curve that we're on will continue over these next 2 years, and I'll give some hard guidance on that in the coming weeks. But as we move forward with the IP package that we have been enforcing these past 4 years, we'll have a much better understanding of what that's going to entail, because there's still about 20% of the market that are utilizing our technology and keeping an eye on this lawsuit that we filed 4 years ago, which is due to be in court in November. So we would expect that we would either have a settlement or our day in court this fall. And we feel that either route will be extremely beneficial in terms of shining light on the infringement
Rick, we've lost your audio again, I think.
We were working our way through that lawsuit.
Okay.
I'm awfully
Okay,
sorry.
we got you
I
back
just
now.
don't
We
know
got you now. Yeah.
All righty. I'm going to minimize just for a sec and see if I can't change the internet connection here, guys. Just give me a
Okay.
sec.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I'll answer. One of the questions that I got was who holds the option on the Alterna capital stock buyback? And I think he just answered that the company holds that option. So, let's say the stock goes to $1 or something, they're going to be able to buy all that stock back at 50 cents. That'll be nice. Anyway. For those of you also on the call, just this morning, the company announced that they have listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange, the TSXV, and that's going to get them a lot more exposure, especially to the Canadian and the European investors. So that's a good thing. Anyway, I'm personally really interested in the European market for this process because I'll tell you, we have several members in Europe, and the paradigm has shifted in Europe. They now realize that wind and solar is not going to cut it for their power generation needs, and they realize they're going to have to continue using coal-fired power plants for a long time. So you can get into that market with this. That's going to be quite an improvement, and I'm sure they have the same kind of emissions regulations that we have here in the U.S. And for those of you on the call, I sure hope you watched my podcast. It was a little bit lengthy, longer than usual, but I wanted to stress that it's becoming quite clear that this world is now consuming more oil-based products than it produces. So I expect above ground inventories to be declining sharply on the oil as we move through the rest of this year. And I don't really see any near-term potential for any quick increases in supply anywhere. And we're going to need every ounce of oil that OPEC can produce here within a few months. So here we go. We're getting back going again.
All righty. Can you folks hear me again?
Yeah, we got you.
Terribly sorry for this, folks. It's the first time it's happened, but first time for everything.
Yeah, it's computers, Rick.
Yeah, let me jump back in where we were and I'll move this along. So
Okay.
the core business being what it was on a nice trajectory of growth, we focused our IP efforts on some very interesting stuff, utilizing our know-how in that absorbent technology. So we started working on a way to clean up the coal ash ponds across the US about 4 years ago. We did some partnership work with an interesting group involved with the Drummond Coal Corp. And then we moved on from that into actually developing some technologies for the potable water business. So at this point in time, we've got some excellent results on the rare earth extraction from coal ash ponds that we will be bringing forth to the market next week. And also, I'm in the process finalizing the strategic package for our firm taking the lead on a specialized activated carbon production facility, which will be based out of Alabama in conjunction with a very significant coal mining corporation in that region. Looks extremely good at this point that we'll move forward with that. We will be making announcements as we go forward. It will be about a $35 million plant, and it will generate materials that are specifically designed to take the forever chemical toxins out of the potable water supplies for municipalities. So we'll be expanding from the air business into the water business, both in the remediation of the coal ash ponds and in a specialized line of products for water treatment for municipalities. I think those technologies will be great synergistic matches for our air pollution control and will extend on our know-how into those very lucrative areas. At this point in time, the supply chain for materials for this forever chemical new regulations that we expect to come in this fall is way behind, probably a third of what's going to be necessary. So we see a very big upside in that, in a way to use our know-how to be able to open up a whole new field. The plant that we're building is somewhat small, but it'll still generate, has the potential to generate about 60 million in revenue annually. And we would expect that that would have very, very significant margins in that. So huge potential for the company to increase its profile in the environmental industry and also move into another division. So we're very much looking forward to putting the last few years of research and development to work with the construction of that plant and the work that we expect to start probably in September with one of our present clients on the remediation of the coal ash ponds. So that kind of summarizes that page quickly. I'm just going to continue to move forward given the connection. But at this point in time, our core business is solid. The share of coal-fired business providing power in the US is solid. And we expect that we will grow nicely, continue to grow nicely over these next 18 months on the same pace that we have the past 18 months. And that's really because folks are starting to see our results in that IP case and understanding that we do truly have a position that needs to be recognized if you're going to use our technologies. As I move forward, our history, very briefly, is from inception through to where we are now. We were trading on the OTC exclusively up until today. So not a lot of penetration into the investment market, no analyst coverage as such, and really not a lot of following our institutional investment. We expect that will change this year as we continue to grow and as the brokers get to understand who we are and what our story is and what our potential is. So first day on a complete exchange today, the TSXV. We also expect that we will move on to the main board sometime this fall once we've established ourselves in Canada. Annual revenue growth projections are very solid. I've yet to give formal guidance, but we are on track for a nice increase over our 22 year-end numbers at this time. And I'll give some formal guidance as to where we expect to end this year with regards to that 30 million number that's on this particular chart. And as the IP case works its way through the court over these next 4 months, we'll have a much better picture as well with regards to 24 and 25. Very much interested in bringing that information back to the investment community. And none of these projections include anything with regards to the rare earth extraction technologies or the wastewater or potable water treatment facilities that we'll be working on. This facility that you see on the right of the page is ours, completely bought, built, and paid for. And we very much expect that we'll have that ramped up and running as we continue forward on our growth curve. I would expect that later this year, we'll probably move over to that as the volumes get closer to the 32 million. It'll make sense for us to start using that. We'll see some good efficiencies in our efforts using that. Again, that's a fully paid for unit. That would be $5 to $7 million if we were to replace it today. And it'll give us the ability to produce and supply upwards of $100 million worth of product. International expansion has been underway for this past year. We started in prior to COVID, then backed off and started back in again about 8 months ago. We have representation now in both Singapore and Hong Kong, and we're actively pursuing business in Malaysia, Singapore, and Taiwan at this point in time. And I very much expect that we'll be carrying out a demonstration at one or more plants in Southeast Asia early fall of this year, which we feel would lead quickly to commercialization in that part of the world. Just keeping in mind, coal power is increasing tremendously in that region, 30+% rather than stabilized as is here in North America. So we see that as a very strong growth market for us. Once we top out on the air side of things here in the US, we expect that we'll start commercially operating there probably early 24, but that the growth there is very substantial in terms of opportunity. So this is talking a bit, this slide, folks, about our portfolio and the lawsuit that we've got going. Suffice to say, trial is just around the corner in November of this year. And we are just waiting another final hearing result from the presiding judge prior to trial. But we're within 4 months of the court date. So we would expect that if there's going to be any sort of a settlement, it'll happen over these next 3-4 months. If not, we'll get our day in court. We feel very good about our position going into a jury trial if indeed it goes that route. The remediation technologies that we've been developing come out of our skill set of this chemisorption. So the transition from coal and its original or present use to environmentally driven technologies is very key to us, one that's very much looked favorably upon by the US government, and one that we've been actively involved in these past 3-4 years. So all of the efforts that we've made so far, the results of which will be made known periodically as we go over these next few months, now that we have an audience and a platform for trading on the TSX, we very much will be bringing a great deal of know-how and or information to the investment community about our achievements to date and where and when we expect to be moving into field trials. I very much expect that we'll be in field this fall, testing a number of different solutions that will have solid commercial viability before we take them to market. Extracting rare earth minerals, especially with what's going on with China right now, continues to be, a big item for us and a big item for the country. We've been working on this now past 3 years. The most recent round of testing, which is about the 6th round of extensive testing, was very positive. And as I mentioned, we'll bring the results of that to market in the next couple of weeks so that people can see where we are. And what our timetable is to take it to full pilot scale testing in the field. The water treatment technology business, we think, is going to be a game changer for us. We really feel with what we've been working on and what we've got developed, that we'll have something that will be extremely valuable to the potable water industry in the US and around the world, but in particular in the US. It will take us about 18 to 24 months to build out the plant, but a great deal of research and development has gone on and will be going on to get us to the top of this field as quickly as possible. The first plant need not even be up and running before we start in on the development of other facilities. So we'll be doing a lot of marketing, pre-marketing, to get a sense of, given the dynamics of the products that we'll be producing, what the depth of penetration is out there. We'll be starting in the Alabama region and moving northeast up through Atlanta and those areas with regards to marketing opportunities. So we very much expect to have a great deal of opportunity in front of us once we launch this technology. So I guess in closing with the significant shareholder value statements, our financials are strong. We've got profitability and year-over-year growth. Our core business is solid and growing on a nice pace across the US. The IP validation that we're getting through our lawsuit is strong and expected to continue to improve. And the international pollution control approach that we're taking has great long-term next generation growth potential for us. So now that we're on the TSXV and most likely moving to the TSX, In the fall, we feel that the platform is there for people to feel comfortable in buying the stock, and we will do our part in improving that enterprise value to the best of our ability. Our environmental remediation focus involving the rare earth extraction is very big and opportunistic. We've got some extremely interesting results to date, and are looking forward to not only bringing that to the investment community, but moving it into full-scale commercial testing this year in order to be able to generate some real following and interest from the industry itself. So that concludes the presentation. I look forward to taking questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, Rick, exciting. And I know you've been on this path since 2008. So I'll give you an A+ for stick-to-itiveness. Okay.
Thank you.
If from 2008, do you still have some of the original team members that are involved?
Oh yeah, all three major senior members from back in the day are still with me as the core drivers of the company.
Yeah.
Jim Treadle, John Pavlish, and several others are core folks that have been working with us hand in hand since the 2008 period. Stacy Hyatt, a key individual as well as part of the program, but the field guys in particular, really good group of guys we've got that have been, just flat out. I mean, we're as busy right now as we could be with regards to the demand that's in place in the market, and the Texas area in particular is very, very busy right now with the coal market flat out.
Yeah, that's great. I tell you, I love stories like this. Anyway, for me, somebody that doesn't know anything about this kind of technology, so the CEA technology, okay, how does that actually work at a coal-fired power plant? Is the emissions, like the smoke coming out of a coal-fired power plants, have to pass through some filtering system, or is it wastewater it's going through?
So a couple of different things there. What we developed back in the early 2000s was a technology that was able to maximize the uptake of mercury emissions and get rid of it from the present technology. So the SEA, that stands for sorbent enhancing additive. So we figured a way out and patented it intensively to be able to use half as much sorbent as most people were using at the time and get twice as much capture rate. So immediately all of the plants that needed to go down that road with that kind of approach all switched to that technology. Unfortunately, the majority of them, because we were a small tech company starting out, just went directly to the suppliers of the materials required to do that. So, we've been clawing back our business these past 5 years since 2017. We did 32 million in 2017, and then we found ourselves competing against ourselves. So in 2019, we filed suit against 4 major utilities to get the ball rolling. They all now have licenses to utilize the technology, and we launched a major lawsuit against a large group that were using our technology as the basis of their tax credit program, which yielded them over $1 billion a year.
Wow.
That's the lawsuit that's coming to fruition in the next few months. So it'll be very interesting to see how that shakes out. But the main thing for us as well is there's about 25 different power plants using the technology that are just basically watching how this lawsuit goes. We very much expect upon winning it, we will be talking to those folks immediately or vice versa.
Well, what are you manufacturing up in Corsicana? Is it a liquid or the powder, or what is it?
Yeah, so what we do is we produce both a liquid and a powdered product or compound based on the chemistry of each individual plant that we service. So we don't just sell a basic material. We go in and analyze the flue gas emissions and produce a specialized compound for that particular boiler, which is why we get such better results than the traditional off-the-shelf approaches.
Okay, good. I just wondered, and then how I'm surprised. So these big coal-fired power plant utility companies, they were just able to go buy the stuff direct from somebody else. Well, how would you not contact the guy selling it and say, hey, you can't sell to these guys? They don't have our
Well,
patent process.
unfortunately, with the way patent law works, it was a bit complex. So it
Uh-huh.
required a couple of different steps to be taken. So the individual, the approach that we've taken was based on, legal advice as to how to go forward. And I wish it was as common sense as you make it, but
Yeah, I know.
there were some steps that needed to be taken. And suffice to say, we have 8 or 9 major corporations that have come over and taken licenses and are now on our supply side. That's why our business, grew back from, 8+ million in 2008, back up to 22 million last year. And
Yeah.
we expect it'll go, close to 30 million this year. So it's building back nicely. We were
Mhm.
profitable last year, and we expect to be profitable this year going forward. And those profits will just grow as we keep adding more users of our technology to our client base.
So I would expect then these people that are involved in a lawsuit, uh, I would think they just want to settle with you and then get into some kind of contract with you, right?
That's a possibility. I can't
Yeah, who
decide
knows? But yeah.
for them, but it'll be interesting to see what sorts out over these next 4 months.
Well, let's say, I mean, if you win the lawsuit and get a cash settlement out of the lawsuit, surely that lawsuit, that court is then going to say, and if you want to use this going forward, you've got to have a contract with these guys.
That's quite that's a reasonable suggestion on your part. I'm not permitted at this point to make
Okay, I
a
understand.
comment, but it'll be interesting to see how everything sorts out. I feel very good about where we sit. We've been 4 years in this, and I think we've
Yeah.
we've proven our position all the way along. And I think a majority of our peers would feel
Yeah. Well, my experience at Hess with large companies, they don't really like to announce that they lost a lawsuit, so they'd rather settle. Anyway, let's get into some of the questions from our guys.
sure.
If someone wants to use your patents, use your process, so are they just paying you royalty, or then you also get an ongoing, like you're selling this powder or this liquid to them? So what do they pay for, and how much is it, and on just a typical coal-fired power plant?
Sure. So, typically there would be a license involved, which would be, depending on the size of the plant, anything from a few $100,000 to a few million a year for the license.
Yeah.
But also what we do, because we're trying to do business, not just get license payments, we will offer a rebate system against the license fee according to the millions of dollars that they purchase product.
Okay.
So if, for example, in a general case, you had somebody that had $1 million license fee, but could give us, say, $3 million a year in business, well, maybe they could chew away and knock half of that license fee out by letting us provide the material rather than a competitor. And we're
Okay.
very competitively priced, so it really makes very little difference to them, but it does, an average size plant would generate several $1 million worth of business for us annually, along with a basic license fee. So it's great business, and there are dozens of them still sitting there waiting to see how this case goes.
Yeah. Bill's next question is, if you win the law, what's the best case scenario? But you can't really say, right?
No, I can't say. All I can
Okay.
say is from the time that we launched the suit till the time they stopped the program, they did about $1.5 billion worth of business. So anybody's guess as to what that means to us in as the court sees it.
Yeah. And it's a jury, could be a jury trial.
Yes, we're scheduled for jury trial in November, should it go that far.
Well, I've seen some juries award pretty big settlements, so crazy. Okay, on that one slide you showed that had your earnings going from 22 to 30 and up, that does not include litigation settlement, does it?
$0 included for
Okay,
any.
so your litigation, what's going to happen by the end of the year on this case could be way above that. Could be a major slug of cash or something, right?
That's possible.
Okay.
The other thing I should make note of is we have underwritten the majority of the expense of the lawsuit to date out of operations. So a very big significant number of the award, if there's any, will go back to the company to increase enterprise value.
Okay, great. What's the life of the patents that you purchased from you purchased these from University of North Dakota?
Yeah, we purchased them and then continue to develop and add to them. So anything from 3 years to 17. And we
Okay,
have
and are those
we have a bunch
patents
of,
are those registered in Europe and Asia also?
yes.
Okay, good. What's the case worth? Okay. We're gonna get that's gonna be a big question all the time.
Yeah,
What
unfortunately,
okay.
I have a sense of what the damage experts have submitted for what this should be worth, but it's not public knowledge, nor can I specifically get
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it.
yeah. You don't want to influence the
But
case.
as you can expect, this is a significant case.
Yeah, this is a big deal for you guys, no doubt about it. Are you targeting any specific rare earth minerals with what you're working on now?
Well, what we've done is and I'm really looking forward to getting the information out in the next week or two. We've just finished our last round of testing before we go on to the next. We've done a broad spectrum approach to date, which covers all 16 different rare earths, but we'll winnow that down according to the field trial results and the values that we get. And it all depends again on what mediums we're running. We've done waste mine drainage runoff. We've done coal ash ponds, and we've done some raw ore. So the technology that we've developed is a means of extracting rare earths at a more practical, economical fashion, more targeted, less environmental concerns, which is a big part of not only how they need to be produced here, because the U.S. is still exporting and importing, the materials, and almost all of the control and the manufacturing is done in China. So we're trying to get to a point where we can do that here in an environmental sound fashion, which I think will be highly utilized if we can get that. But even beyond that, one of our key components coming out of the coal industry is to address these coal ash ponds. There are over 1,100 of them across the country. They're probably the biggest toxic mess in the country, but they're horrendously expensive to clean up. If we can generate a byproduct, and in this case, rare earth elements, that can underwrite the actual cleanup of these ponds, then it will be amazing, and there will be decades of work. So we feel very good about our position to be able to work on that and most likely come up with something that'll enhance the process and have a economical benefit in the cleanup. And I think that would be a huge benefit for the country, as well as a very significant economic development for our firm.
Yeah, man, that sounds great. What's the background of your team? Are they chemists or engineers? What?
Yeah, chemists, engineers, process designers. That plant that you saw on one of the slides, our VP Ops built that out of his head. We've probably got the top sorbent technology guy in the country, in John Pavlish, who's recognized world renowned in the field. Dr. Nick Lentz did his thesis and worked solidly in the potable water and sorbent technology side of things for the past 20 years. We got Ed Olson, who's they used to kid around at the University of North Dakota that when he and his son left the institute, that the IQ dropped in half. I mean, he's probably one of the most brilliant chemists in the country. So just a really good, solid team, very much dedicated to what we've been doing, and looking forward to see this through these next few years to put these new technologies in place.
Yeah, well, I believe on a company like this, you're investing in the team.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you guys, your core team has been together since 2008. I love that.
Well,
But
we're all in on
yeah,
it too. I mean,
yeah,
we've
and
got,
you're all in, and I could tell you're all in, or you wouldn't have lasted this long together.
yeah, 4 or 5 guys. I mean, we went years without income.
Yeah.
Even
Hey, I
so,
know that, man. I've done
I
that.
mean, the years that we had to back up and start over, we lost millions those years. We went without income and rebuilt the team, rebuilt the company back to the point now where this is going to be our year, especially, and going
That's a
forward
great.
the next couple of years.
Yeah. Who are competitors to you?
Right now, we've got competitors like Calgon Carbon, ADA, Norit, and they'll be our competitors in the water supply as well.
Hmm.
Um, None of them have the patented approach that we've got. And so all of the gains that we're making now are at the expense of our competitors. Somebody else was supplying the clients that are now generating our 50% year-over-year growth. And that's our competitors. And so we're finally coming back around now to take our position. I very much expect that we'll have 40% of the mercury removal business in the country within the next 24 months.
Yeah. And then once you get your foothold that you're an approved vendor, whatever, with those big companies, they're going to also be the ones that, now that they have a relationship with you, they'll look at your other things. They'll look at your other processes, right?
Correct. Like that. That's why we got a number of different places that want us to bring our rare earth technologies in and start testing.
Yeah.
Because they've been clients for years and they know our work.
Yeah.
So we've got a real good base to work from as we go forward, and a core business that's providing the cash that we need to do so.
Yeah. We've recently talked to several Canadian-based lithium companies that think they can extract lithium from oil field brine.
Mhm.
That's an exciting area also. And we have talked to some rare earth people. My personal belief is the supplies we're going to need, the amount of rare earths we're going to need, the amount of lithium we're going to need, and everything is going to be in such high demand and become so expensive. It's going to really increase the cost of these EVA. So we got to figure out how to make more of this stuff, find more of this stuff. We can't be buying it all from China. I mean, we just can't go down that path and that be
Well,
the
yeah,
source of our supply chain for either us or Canada.
yeah, and they've even just said today that they're taking a second look at providing those materials, even though they're the main, almost sole supplier. So
Right.
they're starting to ratchet that up as well. So there's a lot of emphasis in the U.S. to move these technologies forward. We think we're one of the leading technology developers right now. Once we get this stuff in the field and have some real commercial pilot scale testing, there will be no lack of folks that want to take this and try it. So I think
Right.
we're on the cusp of a very interesting development point in the rare earth, which will add nicely to the air and water treatment stuff that we're now involved in.
When you talk to potential investors, like guys that are, going to become long-term, funds with you or something, are you getting some feedback or where they say, well, yeah, but aren't they going to shut down all these coal-fired power plants? Are you getting anything like that?
Environmentally, everybody thinks that coal's going away.
No,
Unfortunately,
it's
the
not.
environmentalists, it's not.
It's not at all.
It'll continue to consolidate, but we very much, as does EIA in the US, expect that it's plateaued and going to stay stable for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
If we, for example, can take a small mine, there was one that just recently closed down in West Virginia, for example, 150 jobs, but a perfect little mine for us to start and build out our potable water treatment facility. There are tons of opportunity for us to be able to take over a mine, all the equipment with full state funding and federal support to ramp this new approach of ours up. We've got the know-how, we got the technology, we got the people. So, and we have the wherewithal and the willingness to go forward. So there are a number of different places for us to grow this business in that field with these new forever chemical, the PFOA and PFOS. chemical regulations that are coming into effect. The amount of specialized activated carbon, very profitable product that will be utilized in the US will probably treble or quadruple over these next 2 years, just as our new plant should be coming online. So that, that's the sort of potential we've got. And we have the ability to ramp up and get that all in play as our air pollution business continues on. So I think overall we have a fantastic runway in front of us. We've done all of the heavy lifting to get where we needed to be. So very much looking forward to executing over these next 24, 36 months.
Yeah, a couple questions here just been posted. What's your thoughts on being a potential takeover target?
2 years from now.
Okay. Yeah, you want to get it up to where you really got to.
Yeah, we'll be.
Don't give it away now.
No. I would say 2-3 years from now, we'll be worth we should be worth multiples and multiples of where we are today. I think we're extremely undervalued today. And keep in mind, we haven't really told our story to anybody these past 2 years while we've been working through the litigation and rebuilding the company and moving on to a proper exchange. So it's just today, that first day of trading, that we're starting to talk to people and tell them what we're doing. So I very much expect that the investment community will understand what we're doing, and the folks that we're competing with, in particular in the water supply, once we get that up and running, will be very anxious to be a party with us or to us, or look at what value we could bring, as an acquisition.
What milestones do you have to reach to be listed on the actual TSX?
We're basically there now.
Okay. You just have to be don't you have to be profitable for a couple quarters or something?
We're there now. We've been
already. Okay, good.
It's not. We don't have any issues there. The reason we did the V basically was that we didn't have to raise money, which we didn't want to do down at these levels, and it was a simpler approach to get there. But now that we're on the V, we'll put 2-3 months of good work in and meet all the guidelines and show them that we're a solid company, which we've done as a public filer these past 10 years. And so I would say sometime in September, early October, we'll be ready to move on to the main board. And with that will come a little more profile with the institutions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which we think will be valuable to the shareholders as well.
Yeah, I've personally owned several Canadian junior oil and gas companies. And when they uplist to the TSX, it's just a major opening to new investment.
Yes.
It draws a lot more attention, because I think a lot of hedge funds and stuff will not invest in venture exchange companies.
Yeah, and we're a bit different in that we've been around a long while.
Yeah, and your profit, you got positive cash flow. So
yeah, so I think we won't be hurt by that, but I still think the move to the main board will be helpful in the fall.
Yeah. Let's looking at your financial profile. What does your balance sheet look like right now? What cash do you have? What debt do you have? What's going on there?
We're just about to report, of course, the half year. I can't get into any of the details other than what we've reported first quarter. But back then, over 2 million in working capital, over 2 million in cash. And that's a fairly stable position for us as we go forward.
So with this rare earth stuff, you don't see any reason to issue more equity or anything?
No, we don't have any requirement for any of the initiatives that I've just mentioned today to raise capital.
Okay. All right. All right. Let me look through revenues increase. So when are you going to release second quarter results? August, mid-August or something?
Yeah, it's usually 45 days after the end of the quarter, somewhere around there, August 10th, some 15th, something like that.
Okay. Let's see. The Central Exchange. Oh, what do you think about the market in Europe? What do you think?
I think it's solid. I've got some folks. I'll be meeting in Washington on the 19th this month with the chap from Singapore that's representing us. The folks from Hong Kong will be here meeting with me the end of July. And I've been to both Washington and Ottawa, meeting with all of the Taiwanese representatives. It's state-owned power operations there. So as I mentioned earlier, I fully expect that we'll be probably in a demonstration mode come September. And that typically takes a couple of months to turn into commercial contracts. At this point, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. I think the potential in Southeast Asia is huge. It's probably 5 to 10 times what we've got in the US, and it's growing at 30% a year. So if we can do some strong demonstrations and good, solid royalty packages with the stakeholders being the folks that run the operations, I think we stand to expand our business nicely for the long term.
Yeah. And for those of you, this is my commentary on this too. Those of you that think coal is going to go away, are all the environmental wackos that think coal is going to go away. Here's a situation and why in Southeast Asia, in Asia, with their massive population, the only way they're going to be able to deliver more electricity, reliable electricity to their their people there and that want higher standard of living in those countries is coal-fired power plants, because coal exists everywhere. It's cheap, it's near the surface, it's everywhere, and they can do it. They don't have the money to build a whole bunch of windmills and solar panels and everything. Yeah, it's going to be there, but never more than a few percentage points of their power grid. I just don't see any way that they move away from coal-fired power plants. And I put a chart in my Saturday podcast. It shows that coal demand in 2050 is going to be at least what coal demand is today. So take that for what it's worth, but it's going to be around. Okay, there one more little question. It said, okay, if you go to clean up one of these potash ponds, how long does that take? I mean, I guess it depends on the size of the pond, right?
Yeah, and for us, what we'll be doing is we'll be selling the technology to the company that's carrying it out. So
yeah, so it depends on how fast they want to do it, right?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter to us. They move forward. They extract the rare earths from the pond, and depending on the value of the rare earths that they extract as they go through the pond, then we get our royalty fee. And I very much expect in the next decade that there will be hundreds of these ponds cleaned up. And if we've got a technology in place and a package, and it's sold to the folks that are doing the cleanups, then it should be just a nice growing revenue stream as a technology provider.
Yeah, great. Anyway, I wanted it there with just this comment that, I agreed when Jessica called me about getting you on our webinar series. Once I looked at it, I want to make sure, it's financially sound for one thing, but also where you are. I mean, I just see that you've come a long way and you're to the point now where you're going to have accelerating revenues and cash flow growth. So I think the timing's really good. I love the fact they're now listing on the TSX Venture Exchange. And especially I'm pleased that it looks like within 6 months or so, you're going to be on the TSX at least. So that sounds really great. And I would just say for the next step with us, with our group, again, we're a networking group for self-directed investors. Some of them handle lots of money. Some of them handle just their own little portfolio, but they're very interested in the energy sector. They're very bullish on the overall demand for energy of all sources. So we look at everything. And anyway, the next step for you with us would be after you do your, second quarter results and stuff, if you want to come down here to Houston and get in front of our people, because several of Jessica's clients have done that. And, once they meet you and they meet members of the team and stuff like that, that's when they want to put more money to work in your company. So anyway, I'll leave it for there. Hey, thanks a lot. I think you did a great job. I mean, I really like this. This sounds, you're at a good place, man, my friend. And I'm sure your team's really excited.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys today, and I look forward to coming to Houston for sure.
Okay. Do you ever get to Corsicana?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm in and out of Dallas steady. So Houston's not a big jump.
Yeah, I've got a son that's a dentist in north of Dallas, but we drive through Corsicana on the way up there. Yeah. All right, man. Hey, thanks a lot.
Okay, take care.
We'll get this recording out to our members this afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.